Darius Cole was just a janitor, invisible, ignored, forgotten, until the moment a terrified little girl ran into the hallway, grabbed his leg, and whispered 5 words that would change everything. They beat my mom. She's dying. Behind that luxury penthouse door, a brutal attack was happening. Point 4 men. One CEO, no witnesses, but they didn't know one thing. The janitor they laughed at was not a janitor at all, that he was a former Army Ranger, and he was about to turn that office into a battlefield. Darius had just finished mopping the far end of the hallway when the scream tore through the 22nd floor. They hurt my mom. The little girl's voice echoed down the corridor, panicked and sharp, too real to ignore. Before his mind could even catch up, his body was already moving. Years of buried instinct snapped back to life. The mop bucket rolled away as he ran toward the executive wing, every step pulling him back into a version of himself he had sworn to leave behind. The CEO's office doors were cracked open. Inside, shadows. Chaos. For men. Black gloves. Military knives. And on the marble floor, Selena Ward. America's most flawless, feared, powerful businesswoman. Bleeding, trying to shield her daughter, Nova's wide. Terrified eyes met Darius's for just a second. Then everything went quiet. In less than 30 seconds, the men who had walked in with calculated violence were down. One slammed into the glass wall. Another met the floor before he could even pull his weapon. Bone, breath, silence, movements too clean, too fast, too trained. This wasn't janitor strength. This was war. Darius stood over them, chest rising, a fury he hadn't felt in 10 years clawing its way out of his ribs. His hands were steady, too steady. He recognized every tactic he'd just used. They were written into his muscle memory, into his bones. Selena stared up at him, disbelief mixed with fear. Who are you? I'm just the man who cleans your floors, he said quietly, already scanning the room. But his eyes had changed. Darker, sharper. Sirens should have been called. That's what any normal person would do. But nothing about this felt normal. The way those men moved, the way they targeted her, the patches Darius recognized on one of their sleeves. The police wouldn't make this safer, they'd make it worse. Without another word, he scooped Nova into his arms. She clung to him without hesitation. Selena hesitated only a moment before nodding, trusting a stranger over a system that had already failed her. Minutes later, they were gone to Eno Mansion. No security, just a small, faded apartment on the edge of the city. A place forgotten by power, a place where a single father had tried to stay invisible. Point 2 broken worlds collided that night, and nothing would ever be the same again. Selena Ward woke to the slow rhythm of a ticking clock and the soft hum of a refrigerator. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The ceiling above her was cracked, water-stained, nothing like the flawless marble and gold she was used to. The air smelled faintly of detergent and something warmer. Coffee, cinnamon. Pain pulled her back into reality. Her side burned as she shifted. A bandage skillfully wrapped, pressed tight against the wound. Whoever had done it knew exactly where to place pressure, how to clean, how to seal. The precision wasn't amateur. It was practiced, rehearsed, medical, military. She sat up slowly on the small couch, a thin blanket sliding to her lap. This wasn't her world. Across the room sat the little girl, the janitor's daughter, she realized. Imani. She couldn't have been more than 8. Curled up in a worn armchair, her legs tucked against her chest, she watched a cartoon quietly on a flickering television. She didn't look up. She didn't speak. But there was a comfort in the silence, like this tiny space had learned long ago how to hold broken people without asking too many questions. And on the floor, side by side, drawing with colored pencils. Nova. Her Nova. And then this is the ocean sea? Nova whispered, carefully scribbling blue along the edge of the paper. My mom says we'll live near it someday. Imani nodded. I've never seen the ocean. Only on TV. You will. I promise. Selena's throat tightened at her daughter's voice. For the first time that day, her heart slowed. She was safe. For now, a shadow moved near the kitchen entrance. Darius, an uniform now. Just a simple gray t-shirt, sleeves slightly rolled, revealing faded scars curling up his forearms like old, forgotten stories. He held a mug in one hand and studied her like he'd scan a battlefield, checking for weakness, for danger, for what might still break. "You should still be resting," he said gently. "And you should start answering questions," she replied, her voice steady, but her eyes filled with curiosity and something close to fear. He hesitated, as if deciding how much truth was safe. "Your wound is clean. It missed anything vital. You're lucky." "Lucky isn't the word I'd use," she said, touching the bandage. "Neither is Janitor." He didn't flinch, just set the mug down on the small counter. "You move like a trained killer in that office," she added quietly. "You neutralized 4 men without a single wasted motion. That wasn't courage. That was conditioning." He finally looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw it. The weight behind his eyes, the fatigue of someone who had spent years outrunning memories. "Former Army Ranger," he said at last. "Combat médic. 2 tours overseas. More places than I ever wanted to see. More deaths than I could count." The words landed heavy in the stillness. "You saved my life," Selena whispered. "Yes," he answered. "And I buried a part of myself doing it." Silence filled the apartment again. "My wife died 8 years ago," he continued, his voice lower now. "Car accident. Drunk driver walked away. She didn't. I was deployed when it happened. The army flew me home in uniform, and everyone said I was a hero." His hand curled slightly as he spoke. "I couldn't save the one person that mattered most." He glanced toward Amani. "So when I got out, I wanted quiet. No rank, no orders, no weapons. Just a roof, a broom, food on the table. I chose peace. Ich chose fraternité. Ich chose invisibility." Selena swallowed the lump in her throat. "And that choice almost cost you your life today," she said. "No," he replied, watching the 2 girls on the floor, now laughing softly together. "It saved it. It saved theirs too." For the first time since entering that apartment, something unfamiliar stirred inside Selena Ward. Gratitude, respect, and trust. Suddenly, a low engine hum drifted through the thin walls. Darius moved to the narrow window, gently pulling the old curtain aside. Down on the street below, a black sedan idled at the corner. Too clean, too patient, too out of place in this forgotten part of the city. His jaw tightened. "Do you recognize it?" she asked. "I recognize the kind of people that use it." As if summoned by the thought, his phone buzzed in his pocket. An unknown number, untraceable, private. He stared at the screen for one long second. Then he answered. Only breathing came through at first. Slow, controlled. Then a voice, distorted and dangerous. "You should not have interfered, Ranger." Darius closed his eyes. "They've found you," Selena whispered. "No," he replied softly, eyes opening with sharp focus. "They found us." The line went dead. Outside, the sedan's headlights flicked on. Inside, Nova and Amani grew silent. Sensing a change in the air, Darius knelt down in front of the 2 girls, forcing a gentle smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We're going on a little trip," he said. "Just for a while." "Where?" Nova asked. He looked toward Selena, then back to his daughter. "Somewhere they'll never look for us," he answered. He stood, already reaching for the old army bag hidden beneath his bed. The one he swore he'd never touch again. The peaceful life he had built was over. And now, if they wanted to survive, they would have to disappear. The city disappeared in the rearview mirror long before dawn broke the horizon. Concrete turned to cracked two-lane roads. Streetlights faded into trees. Cell towers vanished into fog. The world narrowed until it was nothing but cliffs, pine needles, sharp curves carved into stone, and the steady hum of Darius's engine cutting through silence. Selena sat in the back seat, Nova resting against her side. In front, Imani clutched a small stuffed rabbit to her chest. She hadn't let go of it since they left. "Where are we going?" Nova finally asked. "Somewhere the past can't find us," Darius answered, eyes locked on the road. Snow dusted the higher ridges as they climbed. The air grew sharper, cleaner, and for the first time since the attack, Selena felt her lungs fill completely, like the mountains were offering her a breath she hadn't taken in years. Hours later, the car slowed, then stopped at the end of a narrow, overgrown trail. This is it, Darius said. There's nothing here, Selena murmured. He stepped out, opened the trunk, slung a worn backpack over his shoulder. Exactly. They walked the remaining half-mile on foot, under towering evergreen trees, and along a hidden path the world had long forgotten. Then, behind a camouflage wall of brush and rock, it appeared at a cabin small. Weathered, solid. Its wooden frame had faded to a soft silver, but the walls still stood strong against time. Smoke had once curled from the crooked chimney, and laughter had once filled its rooms. Built by his late wife's grandfather, this cabin was the last place on earth that still held her memory, and now it was their refuge. Inside, the air was cold but still. Dust drifted in pale shafts of sunlight, piercing through the window slats. Darius moved efficiently, lighting a small fire, checking locks, securing the perimeter the same way he would once clear enemy territory. But this wasn't enemy land. This was sacred ground. Soon, the crackle of flames brought warmth to the room. Jackets were loosened, shoes removed. Nova and Imani sat in front of the fire, hands stretched out toward the dancing light, their faces glowing orange and gold. "It's beautiful," Nova whispered. Selena watched them, heart aching at the small peace blooming in their smiles. Darius poured water into an old tin kettle. "For now," he said quietly. Later, as the girls slept bundled in blankets, Selena stood beside him on the narrow porch. The mountains stretched endlessly in front of them, silent guardians wrapped in mist. "You said they know this place?" she asked. "No," he replied. "No one does. That's why it still exists. But whoever those men were, they weren't random." He nodded. "They work for a man named Cashinroar." The name stirred something inside her. Cold. Familiar. The billionaire? Selena frowned. The philanthropist? The man everyone praises for rebuilding cities. "The same man," Darius said. "Only the world doesn't see what hides behind his image. He doesn't just control companies. He controls people, information, silence. Why would he come after me? Because you refuse to sell him Global Ward Holdings. And men like Cashinroar don't take no from powerful women. They erase them instead." Selena closed her eyes. "You said you knew his kind." "I knew him," Darius corrected. "Overseas. He funded private operations that never made headlines. Whole villages disappeared, and no one ever asked why. I walked away from that world from him. That makes me a liability." They stood in heavy silence. "We should expose him," she finally said. "I still have connections. I can make a call." Darius hesitated. One call is all it takes to light a fire they can't put out, or to lead them straight to us. "Or both," she said. He exhaled slowly. "Make it fast. Make it count." Inside the cabin, Selena dialed an encrypted number only a handful of people in the world knew. A journalist who had spent his life chasing dangerous truths. When he answered, she didn't waste a breath. "My name is Selena Ward. If anything happens to me, remember this name, Cashinroar. He is connected to illegal operations, assassination attempts, and global financial manipulation. He is not what the world thinks he is." There was a pause. "Then, where are you right now?" The line cut. Darius's head snapped up. "Damn it. Too late." Outside, a low, distant thrum cut through the mountain silence. It grew louder, heavier than a helicopter. The walls shuddered slightly as the sound circled above the trees. Searchlights blasted through the forest like white spears. And then voices. Many of them. Closing in. "They're here," Selena whispered. Darius moved instantly. "Basement. Now." "There is no basement." He yanked a rug away, revealing a trap, door hidden in the floor. He lifted it, exposing a wooden ladder descending into darkness. "Cellar," he said. "Built for storms. For war. For worse." The girls stared up at him, fear pooling in their eyes. "Listen to me." He dropped to their height, gripping their shoulders gently. "You go down there. Stay silent. No matter what you hear." "What about you?" Imani asked, her voice trembling. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Just for a second. I'll be right behind you." Selena knew that was a lie the moment he said it. Outside, boots crunched through leaves. Men shouted commands. The metallic clink of weapons echoed on stone. He looked at Selena one last time. I will hold them off. You can't, she whispered. There are too many. I'm not fighting to win, he replied. I'm fighting to give you time. Flames licked the edges of the surrounding trees as one of the men tossed a lit device through the brush. The forest hissed, then roared to life. The sanctuary turned into an inferno. Smoke poured through the cracks in the walls. Darius pushed the trap, door open wider. Go. Now. Tears streaked down Nova's cheeks as Selena guided her down the ladder. Imani followed, clutching her rabbit, sobbing silently. Before Selena stepped down herself, she grabbed his arm. You said you chose peace. His gaze softened, even as fire reflected in his eyes. I did, he said. Now I'm choosing them. Behind him, the cabin door shattered under the kick of a boot. Darius, a voice shouted outside. He smiled faintly. Then he closed the trap door above them, plunging them into darkness. Above ground, gunfire exploded into the night, and outside, death was waiting. The world came back in pieces, smoke, ash, snow. The sharp scent of burning pine tore at their lungs as Selena struggled to pull open the cellar door from below. Her hand slipped, slick with sweat and dirt. Above her, the roar of flames swallowed the night, devouring the only shelter they had known. The cabin that had carried a lifetime of memories for Darius was nothing more than an orange silhouette against the black mountains. Then, through the chaos, came a familiar voice. Now, move! Darius, he dropped from the side of the cabin, coat torn, blood streaked across his jaw. His eyes scanned the tree line, calculating paths, distances, angles. Even surrounded by fire and armed men, his mind functioned like a map. Which way? Selena coughed. He pointed to the north ridge. Down, into the ravine. It'll hide our heat signatures from the helicopter. Nova clung to her mother's hand, trembling. Imani wrapped her small fingers around Darius's wrist, refusing to let go. Gunfire cracked overhead. Tree bark exploded around them. Run, Darius shouted. They bolted into darkness just as the roof of the cabin gave in with a deafening groan behind them. Flames clawed into the sky. Birds burst from trees, their shrieks swallowed by the roar of destruction. Branches tore at their clothes. Snow crunched beneath frantic feet. The ground dropped sharply, and Selena slid, clutching Nova tighter, catching herself on frozen stones. Darius scooped Imani up, then turned, racing back to help them. A second helicopter thundered closer. The white beam of a spotlight cut through the smoke, sweeping dangerously across the forest floor. Mom, Nova whimpered. Her voice was weak. Too weak, Selena gasped. Nova's cheek was flushed, damp hair plastered to her forehead. Her skin burned beneath Selena's palm. No, baby, she whispered, terrified. Darius placed his hand on her neck for just a second. His face darkened. She's burning up. And we can't stop, Selena said, panic cracking her composure. He nodded. I know. He swept Nova up into his arms without another word, holding her against his chest as if she weighed nothing at all. And then he ran. The man who had buried war inside his bones dug it back up and used every ounce of it. He broke through snow drifts up to his waist, crossed an icy stream that stole the feeling from his legs in seconds, shielded her body as branches lashed his face, skin splitting beneath their lashes. Above them, the chopper circled endlessly, refusing to lose its prey. Hours blurred together in a blur of cold breath and desperate footsteps. Selena stumbled more than once. Imani, tiny and exhausted, dug deep for strength no child should need to find. Only one thing kept them moving: love, not fear, not money, not power. Love for the fragile girl burning in Darius's arms. And finally, a structure appeared through the trees, an old ranger outpost, abandoned, half collapsed, hidden beneath years of vines and snow. Hope surged through Selena like electricity. Inside, the small building groaned as they shoved the door shut behind them. The air was stale, but it was shelter. Darius laid Nova down on an old cot that still clung to the scent of oil and iron. She shivered violently now, lips tinted pale blue. We need medicine, Selena whispered. A hospital? We can't go to a hospital, he replied. That helicopter is still hunting, but I might have something better. He crossed to a back corner and yanked away a rusted metal shelf. Behind it sat an old military radio, dusty but intact. These outposts were emergency hubs for special operations, he said, already working the knobs. If this thing still breathes, there's one person who might hear it. Static crackled, popped. Darius adjusted the frequency with shaking hands. Answer me, he muttered. Come on. Answer me, the radio hissed. Then a voice low. Surprised. Alive. Haven Station here. This line was decommissioned years ago. Who is this? Darius exhaled hard. You owe me 2 favors from Kandahar. Silence. Then, Darius Cole, the voice breathed. The Ghost Ranger? I'm not a ghost, he said, but I am running out of time. Coordinates, the voice demanded. Darius rattled them off from memory. There was a pause. Those mountains are locked down by private forces. Airspace is restricted by Cashin Roar himself. If you're there, you're sitting in his graveyard. Then send everyone you trust, Darius answered, because he tried to bury 2 children today. Selena stepped forward, grabbing the microphone. This is Selena Ward, she said, fire in each word. He tried to murder us on U.S. soil. This is no longer a business dispute. This is war. On the other end, the voice grew cold. You want out, or you want blood? Selena looked down at Nova, burning and barely conscious. Then at Amani, trembling but brave. Then at the man who had sacrificed everything to protect them. No more running, she said. Her voice hardened into something that even she didn't recognize. He tried to kill us, she spoke slowly, clearly. End him. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Understood, the voice replied. Hold position. Extraction and exposure team inbound. If you survive the night, he won't survive the truth. The radio cut off. Outside, the helicopter's sound returned, faint but creeping closer again. Lights skimmed treetops like eyes searching for movement. Darius picked up his rifle from the corner. An old piece he never thought he'd hold again. He checked the chamber. Loaded. Then he stepped to the boarded window, looking into the darkness where enemies crept between shadows. This was never the life I wanted for you, he said, not turning around. Selena placed her hand on his back. But it's the life that brought us here. He nodded once. Outside, branches snapped. Men whispered between trees. Weapons clicked. Inside the outpost, Nova whimpered softly, her pulse fluttering beneath Darius's palm as he went to her one last time. You're going to see the ocean, he whispered to her. Imani will too. I promised. Then he stood, determination carved into every line of his face. The gentle janitor was gone. The soldier had returned. And tonight, he wasn't hiding, he was hunting. The first sirens cut through the night, like a prayer finally answered. Red and blue lights bled into the forest, weaving between the trees, bouncing off the snow, the smoke, the remnants of flame. The helicopter that had stalked them for hours veered sharply away as government aircraft replaced it. Official, undeniable. Orders rang out. Boots pounded. Flashlights swept the ground. Police, drop your weapon. Darius lowered the rifle slowly, hands raised, every muscle still coiled for war. For a heartbeat, the world hung suspended in the silence between one life and another. Then medics rushed in. Point one knelt beside Nova, checking her temperature, her pulse, her breathing. Another wrapped a thermal blanket around Amani's small shoulders. Oxygen masks for lines, gentle hands moving with precision and care. She's alive, the medic said softly, and she's going to stay that way. Selena collapsed to her knees, pressing her face in Nova's blanket, crying in relief she hadn't allowed herself to feel until that moment. Outside the outpost, agents in black uniforms escorted men out of the forest. Cashin Roar's private soldiers, stripped of their power, handcuffed, silent. And then, at last, there he was, Cashin Roar himself. His tailored suit was torn, his perfect image cracked wide open. Cameras flashed as agents dragged him toward a waiting vehicle. The same man who had once ruled boardrooms and headlines now struggled under the weight of his own ruin. You can't touch me, he screamed. Do you know who I am? Yes. An officer answered coldly. The world is about to find out too. By morning, the truth spilled across every screen on Earth. Illegal operations, domestic terror, murder plots, human trafficking. Politicians bought like merchandise. Billions laundered through charities that wore angelic masks. The world watched as the monster behind the smile was unmasked. And as the story unfolded, another name surfaced beside the chaos. Darius Cole, and no longer janitor, no longer ghost, no longer invisible. The soldier who saved a CEO, the father who saved two girls, the man who walked in a fire and came back with life in his arms. Weeks later, sunlight streamed through the leaves of a quiet city park. Children's laughter drifted on the breeze. Pure and unburdened point, two little girls ran across a field of green, arms stretched wide, chasing each other's shadows. Race you to the fountain, Nova shouted. You can't catch me. Imani laughed, her voice finally free of fear on a nearby bench. Selena watched them, a soft smile on her face. The woman forged in boardrooms and battles now looked peaceful, human in a way she had long forgotten was possible. Beside her sat Darius, quiet as ever, though the world now knew his name. You saved us, she said, turning to him. We saved each other, he replied. She nodded, then took his hand. Not as a CEO, not as a survivor, not as a powerful woman making another calculated move, but simply as Selena, the woman who had looked into death and chosen life. What we found in fire, in fear, in chaos, she said softly, watching the girls splashing near the fountain, was a family. He squeezed her hand gently. Then she stood, heart racing harder than it had in any boardroom meeting, any hostile takeover, any moment of danger she had ever faced. She turned toward him. Darius, she said, her voice trembling with something new, something beautiful. Marry me. Not as a business deal, but as a full partnership. His eyes widened, caught between disbelief and emotion. Then he pulled her into an embrace as the girls turned, cheering, clapping, running toward them. In that moment, the past finally let go. And what stood in its place wasn't power or pain or revenge. It was something far more powerful. Hope, family, and a new beginning built from the ashes of everything they had survived. Darius never wanted glory, he wanted a quiet life and a safe world for his daughter. Selena thought power meant control, until she learned it meant sacrifice. And Nova, she just wanted her mother to live. Together, they walked through fire, through fear, through loss, and on the other side, they found something most people spend their whole lives searching for, a family not built by blood but by courage, loyalty, and loved. If this story stayed with you, if it made you feel, then it mattered. And maybe, just maybe, heroes don't wear suits or crowns. Sometimes they carry mops.